So I, of course, spoke a little too soon as I realized after finishing that last video that there is actually two more simple, like a few more simple textures that we can add really, really quickly that are default textures. One of which is just something kind of to represent the material of this grate here. I don't really care too much about making it that photorealistic or that realistic because we're going to eventually be getting rid of this pool. And then, of course, we have the metal of the mullions and door, which we can easily do with a color. And I think we should just do this glass up here with a color as well. Just something really simple. So let's start with the floor. I'm just going to select everything I can to hide, that it's just kind of up in the way. So I just selected everything and then hit H to hide it. Now I am opening the floor up, and I'm going to do a line going from corner to corner within this shape here. In fact, might as well do all the way across. So from corner to corner, and then again corner to corner. Now, this of course is not an actual material that one would really use for this, but I think it represents what we want it to represent. So I'm going into window coverings, and I'm choosing this first window covering, which looks a little bit like just a series of lines. I'm going to go into my home here and edit that, make that 3 feet so that it's a little bigger. Close. Okay. So keeping with this material, I'm going to just go from point to point on these first two sides. Now I want it to actually turn as it rounds the corner. So on this one, I'm going to click with the bucket tool, and then immediately I'm going to right click on that face, go down to texture and position. We'll be playing with this a lot more when we start working on the interior model. We're really going to get heavy into textures. But for this one, it's still good to know. I think we discussed this briefly in the beginning SketchUp class, but here we're going to get really into it. There's 4 different options for what you can do within one face when you're editing a texture. For now, I'm not going to worry about those as much as I am just going to rotate it. So again, first thing I do is click on Texture Position, right click, and now I right click again, and I'm going to select Rotate 90. And that's just going to rotate that texture just on this face 90 degrees. Done. If I right click, then I can say done. Now I'm going to, with my bucket tool selected, use my eyedropper tool here, but you have to you don't actually go to this eyedropper up here. You actually hit Command and select that. On the PC, I believe it is the Control button, and then you click. So you're sampling from that face, and you're clicking the material only on those 2 pieces, or those 2 planes, faces, I should say. Okay, that gets us our pool grate. Okay, now unhide all, and the really easy ones, which are just the color of the glass up above. So I'll go into my colors now, and I'll select something really kind of, let's see, I'll start with this kind of blue, and then I'll edit it from here. So I'm going to place that blue on this material, go home. With this blue selected, I now can edit it and make it whatever I want it to be. There seems to be sometimes a little glitch on the Mac where you actually want to start with the color wheel and edit it a little bit, and then you have the option to go into your hue, saturation, and sliders. So you can control the brightness of it, you can control the hue of it, and you can control how saturated it is. So I'm just playing with bringing the saturation down, the hue, the brightness. I'm fine with it being called color H01 because I'm never going to look for it by name, and I'm just going to close that. Okay, so that's the color for the glass up there. Let's do this one as well. And let's do this one here, because we don't want to see behind that, because there's nothing behind that to see. Now I want to choose the color for the metal that surrounds my my door and the mullions and the door frame itself. So I'm going to go back into colors, scroll all the way down, and I'll choose kind of a mid-level gray. So I apply that to the outside. It's looking a little dark. Let's go with something a little bit lighter. Okay, I like that a little better. So I'm going to use, this is going to be the gray that I use throughout the whole thing. Now when I open this door up and go back to my, let's go back into the home. I kind of like to, as a habit, go home every time I'm done selecting a material so I can see what it is I'm working with. So I'll select that same gray and I'll apply it with my bucket to the push bar and to the frame. And notice it happens to all the doors because they're components. Let's do the interior doors. And in this case, we want to do the walls that surround them as well. So activate my bucket tool, paint that, and then open up the door by double clicking on it. Let this frame stay closed and just paint the whole thing. I'm going to select another color, slightly lighter. Let's go with one of the lighter grays for the handle. Then right click and close the component. Okay, that's great. So it applied to all of my doors. On these interior doors, I don't want to see behind them either. So I'm going to go back home and I'm going to use that same glass color, that same opaque glass color that we just made. So I select that, go to my bucket and paint that onto the door, then close the component. Let me zoom all the way out. Now, I'll paint this gray on this face. Okay, it's looking good, looking a little bit more active. Let's go ahead and pan down into this and look at this elevation here. I'm going to hide the glass. I'm going to hide all of this stuff around that I don't want to see. Hide the floor. So I'm just kind of trying to hide as much as I can to get as much out of the way. Because what I want to do now, again, I'm not deleting, I'm just hiding. I want to select all of this and make this into one group. So I've selected all of the mullions, vertical and horizontal, and I hit G to make that into a group. So now that when I hit my bucket tool with this gray and apply it to that, it's going to apply that to the entire group. I don't have to go in and do it one by one. Go ahead and unhide what I don't need to be hidden anymore. And again, I want to do this other side same way. I'm nice and quick, so I'll select as much as I can without selecting this wall and hide it. I'll select that beam above and those columns and I'll hide them. Hide that glass. I don't want to paint this surface. I don't want to paint this. I can select the doors. Hide them. Hide these frames because I don't want to make these a part of the group. I just want to group this series of mullions together. Okay, so now let's go ahead and hide these two. Well, first thing, actually this is going to be a lot easier. I'll select these like this using my select from left to right. I'm just selecting those mullions. I'm going to group those. Now, with the bucket, paint that. Now I can hide that. And I can select this stuff and hide that. Okay, great. So I've basically all I have now are all these pieces that I can select. All as one. Make that into a group by hitting G. Then going to my paint bucket tool and painting that. Okay, unhide. Let's do an unhide all. Let's turn that roof off again. Take that gray, that same gray, and just apply it to the frame around those doors. Okay. Now we are to a point where we can start going out into the real world. Wait. One more thing. Sorry about that. Let's go and take a darker color. Let's get a darker gray. Something in this world. And let's just quickly paint this bottom piece here. Okay. Okay. Now I can confidently say that we are at a position where we can go out and start grabbing some materials from the real world.